I sat at my desk, the sterile glow of the computer screen bathing my cubicle in hues of blue and white, while frustration bubbled within me like a shaken soda can. I had learned the hard way that being a cog in the machine meant sometimes being left out entirely. Today, it was the crucial project meeting that I had been explicitly excluded from, and the whispered conversations that drifted through the air felt like daggers. With my coworkers huddled in the conference room, my curiosity grew sharper. What are they talking about? What could possibly be so important that they couldn't include me? As I leaned back in my chair, I could hear snippets of their laughter. It stung. Surely, I had something valuable to offer. It wasn't long before I made a decision fueled by that frustration. I would dig deeper. My fingers flew across my keyboard, searching through our internal database, pulling up information on the latest projects. The more I uncovered, the more I realized I could unlock potential solutions that had been overlooked. Then, something caught my eye. A dataset that seemed almost too significant to be sitting there, unused. It was groundbreaking and, dare I say, it could revolutionize how we tackled our current problem. Heart racing, I pulled the documents closer. This is gold, I whispered to myself, feeling a surge of adrenaline. Suddenly, the door swung open, and there stood my boss, Chris, his face contorted in a mixture of anger and surprise. "What are you doing? This information is classified. You can't just go digging around like this." The air turned heavy between us, the tension crackling like static. I caught my breath, an unease settling in my stomach. I was just trying to help. I found something." He paused, collecting his thoughts, his eyes narrowing. "You uncovered something significant, but you crossed a line. We'll discuss this later, but right now, I need to see what you've found." My heart thudded loudly in my chest as I gathered the documents and followed him into the conference room. The atmosphere shifted the moment I stepped through the door. Stares and whispers ceased, replaced by an unsettling silence. Every pair of eyes flicked toward me, scrutinizing. I could almost taste the judgment in the air, thick and bitter. As Chris presented my findings, I could see the surprise morph into intrigue among my fellow team members. One by one, their expressions shifted, slowly accepting me as part of the conversation. I felt a rush of empowerment course through me, but when I glanced at a couple of familiar faces, I sensed envy simmer under the surface like an active volcano. "Looks like we underestimated you," a voice from the back broke the silence, layered with mockery. I turned to see Sarah, a colleague I had always considered friendly. "But can we really rely on data you found on your own?" Her challenge cut through the tentative affection of my colleagues. The battlefield was drawn, and I could feel alliances starting to form, tension weaving itself deeper into the fabric of our team. As we debated, the stakes grew higher, and I realized that what was once a simple exclusion had now transformed into a web of secrets and hidden agendas. By the time the meeting ended, I wasn't just an overlooked employee anymore. I had become a pivotal player in a game I didn't even know I was in. Would I be able to wield this unexpected power to influence the project's direction and navigate the treacherous waters of trust, or would it lead to unforeseen consequences? Before I dive deeper into this unfolding drama and reveal the shocking twists ahead, here's a quick reminder for everyone following our stories. YouTube has been removing subscriptions, so make sure you're still subscribed, and give us a thumbs up to show your support. Now, back to the gripping moment where everything began to change. As I stood there in the conference room, the atmosphere thick with scrutiny, I could feel the weight of every gaze upon me. My palms were clammy against the stack of papers I had clutched like a lifeline, my heart thudding a frantic rhythm. Chris shifted uncomfortably beside me, his brow furrowed as he flipped through the documents that had sparked this unexpected confrontation. "Let's take a closer look at your findings," he said, his tone bordering on diplomatic but heavy with unspoken tension. "What do you think you are gonna find?" Sarah's voice dripped with skepticism, slicing through the stillness. "Data against us, or just the proof you think will save your job?" I could feel my cheeks flush, the air suffocating as I tried to summon a retort. Before I could form a response, Chris interjected, Enough, Sarah. We need to focus on whether this data gives us an advantage in the project. I caught a glimpse of camaraderie in his eyes, a flicker of the trust he had offered before this chaotic storm. But uncertainty lingered thick in the air, like the smell of burnt coffee from the break room. Surrounded by my colleagues, the walls echoed their murmurs, weighing heavy with unacknowledged competition. I noticed Mark, usually supportive, leaning back in his chair with arms crossed, a fortress of secrecy guarding his interest. My voice shook slightly as I spoke up, embarking on my defense. This data isn't simply numbers. It's a way to resolve the bottleneck we've been facing. I could feel the faces turn, a mix of skepticism and curiosity shaping their expressions. Talk to us about the methodology you used, Chris prompted, his gaze intent. I explained my approach, recalling nights spent digging through layers of information, wrestling with countless spreadsheets. Each detail I shared peeled back another layer of their distrust, allowing a breath of intrigue to permeate the room. As I articulated the potential insights, I noticed Sarah whispering something to Mark. She was plotting. Electricity danced in the air, an unspoken agreement forming between them. My chest tightened, awareness flooding through me. Were they forming a rival faction? What did they know that I didn't? Just then, Chris interrupted my thoughts. Your insights could help us track consumer behavior more effectively. It could turn things around for our project, he said, signaling a shift. But I could sense the ripples of resentment vibrating beneath the surface. The room, once filled with potential collaboration, began morphing into a battlefield of alliances and betrayals. My peers had transformed into warriors, ready to protect their stakes in this corporate clash. Let's not act like we're on a soap opera here, a deep voice rumbled from the back. It was Tom, always the neutral party. We need to combine our efforts, not fracture. The tension hung, and I absorbed the implications of his words. Would unity be an option, or did secret motives lie just beneath this carefully crafted facade? Tom's right, I nodded, my stomach churning. If we combine our strengths, we could bolster our solution exponentially. The murmurs bounced back and forth, but I sensed the walls closing in around me. Was I really suggesting unity, or was it purely a tactical move to secure my place among them? As the meeting wrapped up, Chris thanked everyone for their input, but I remained hyper-aware of the glances exchanged between Sarah and Mark. What was brewing outside the public eye? I felt an urge to dig deeper, to unveil the layers concealed behind smiles that felt like daggers. Before we unravel this intriguing web of alliances and impending betrayals, let me pause for just a moment. YouTube has been tweaking its subscriptions recently, so do check if you're still on board with us and smash that thumbs up to help support our channel. Now, let's dive back into this tale of intrigue and corporate rivalry, where the stakes are rising higher and secrets begin to unravel. I paced the dimly lit break room, the hum of the refrigerator a distant echo against the whirlwind of thoughts swirling in my mind. The stark fluorescent lights flickered, casting intermittent shadows that mirrored the growing turmoil within me. How had I gone from being a trusted member of the team to someone who had to fight tooth and nail for recognition? As I poured myself a lukewarm cup of coffee, I couldn't shake the feeling that something hidden lurked just beyond the surface. Hey, you okay? Sarah's voice cut through my haze, her blue eyes filled with concern. I forced a smile, but it felt like a porcelain mask. Yeah, just trying to figure out the next steps. My reply came out sharper than intended, a hint of defensiveness escaping before I regained composure. The meeting today was intense, she remarked, leaning against the counter. Everyone's on edge. You really stirred things up. Stirred things up or poured gasoline on a fire, I replied, bitterness creeping into my tone. I just want to prove I belong here. The silence that followed felt heavy, almost accusatory. I could sense she wanted to say more, but the words hung limply between us. Just then, bleeps of notifications echoed from my phone. Frantically, I tapped the screen to see a message from Chris, my boss. We need to meet, urgent. My heart raced as I glanced back at Sarah. What do you think he wants? I don't know, but something tells me it's about the data. She frowned, concern knitting her brow. It was a tantalizing thought had my findings ruffled more feathers than I anticipated. As I headed towards Chris's office, with each step, my fingers tensed around my phone, my pulse quickening. What could be more urgent than the fallout from the meeting? The air grew thicker the closer I got, each breath heavy with unspoken words. Chris looked up from behind his polished desk as I entered, one eyebrow raised. "Close the door." The command sent a shiver down my spine. I couldn't tell if it was fear or anticipation. I complied, the click of the latch echoing my dread. "I've been thinking about the data," he began, but his voice faded as I realized a critical piece was missing. "You've unintentionally caused a shift in our dynamics. You know that, right?" My heart plummeted. This wasn't just about the project, it was about power. I didn't mean to. I just wanted to help the team. I fought to keep my voice steady, but it trembled at the edges. He leaned back, his fingers intertwined, staring me down as if weighing my worth against the chaos I had incited. "Helping isn't everything," he said slowly. "Right now, your contributions have potential, but trust is fraying. Your teammates, they're not thrilled about being upstaged. Can you handle the fallout?" I swallowed hard, the weight of his words sinking in. Could I handle it? There was an unmissable tension in the air, a pulse of rivalry morphing between us that made my skin crawl. Would I emerge victorious, or would I crumble under the weight of their expectations? Trust and power. "It all hangs in the balance now," Chris continued, his tone shifting into something more dangerous. "Choose wisely, or the very foundation of this team could shatter." I nodded, doubts gnawing at me. I had to play this right, but the stakes were higher than I had anticipated. As I stepped out of his office, anxiety buzzed louder than the fluorescent lights overhead, intertwining with a spark of determination. Before we dive deeper into the twists and turns of this corporate saga, here's a quick heads up. YouTube has been sneaky with subscriptions lately. Do check that you're still on board with us, and give us a like if you're enjoying this story. It really supports us. Now, back to the unfolding confrontation where trust and betrayal intertwine within our team. As I walked back to my desk, I couldn't shake the feeling that something darker loomed ahead. I could hear hushed whispers filtering through the cubicles, a secret language woven into the fabric of the office atmosphere. I had ignited something, and I felt it, the tension building like a coiled spring ready to snap. The opportunity for camaraderie seemed to fade, leaving me standing at the crossroads. Who could I truly rely on? As I observed the wary glances exchanged between my colleagues, I knew I had to make my next move carefully, or risk losing everything I had fought to achieve. Little did I know that whispers of rivalry were brewing into something far more sinister. The game was just getting started, and the next hand could change everything. How would I navigate this treacherous landscape without losing my edge or my sanity? I stood at my desk, the sterile glow of my computer screen highlighting the engraved worry lines etched deep on my forehead. The office was quieter now, as though everyone was holding their breath, and I could taste the bitter tension bubbling below the surface. Just hours ago, I was the underdog scrambling for recognition, but now I was entangled in a web of unanticipated power dynamics, where the stakes had drastically climbed. Drawing a deep breath, I pulled out my notes, a crumpled stack of papers filled with my findings. Each line was like a lifeline, a reminder of the expertise I had uncovered. I glanced over at Sarah, who sat with her team, an inscrutable expression on her face. What were they whispering about? Just moments ago, our discussion had been filled with potential collaboration, but the undercurrents of suspicion had swiftly transformed camaraderie into rivalry. "Hey," Tom said, approaching my cubicle, a concerned expression painting his features. "You okay after the meeting?" His voice held a hint of genuine concern. "I guess," I replied, my voice trailing off. I couldn't help but feel the weight of his scrutiny as I sought solace in the chaos around me. "Just trying to figure out how to navigate all this. It feels like I've stirred up a hornet's nest. More like you lit a fuse." He chuckled lightly, the humor not quite reaching his eyes. "People are tense, and uncertainty breeds distrust." There was a knowing in his tone that made my stomach twist. I could see it, the shifting alliances and fractured trust brewing in the office like a storm that was ready to break. As I considered his words, a sudden flash of movement at the other end of the room caught my attention. Sarah was leaning toward Mark, their heads bent in a conspiring whisper. Were they plotting against me? Anxiety coiled tightly within my chest. Perhaps in their eyes, I was just a usurper, an interloper who had disrupted their well-crafted plans. Tom, do you think I should go talk to them? I glanced at him, my heart pounding with the prospect of confrontation. He shrugged, uncertainty etched across his face. You could, but tread carefully. They might see it as a threat. With the weight of his caution hanging in the air, I found myself in a dilemma. Should I confront the mounting whispers, or retreat into the safety of my cubicle? I chose the former. Gathering my courage, I stood up and made my way to the little gathering. Hey, can I join you? I said, adopting a friendly demeanor even as my heart raced in my chest. Mark looked up first, his expression inscrutable. Sure, he replied, but there was an edge to his tone. As I settled into the small circle, I immediately felt the tension thick and suffocating. Sarah shot me a glance, her lips pressed into a thin line. We've been discussing our strategy moving forward, she said, her voice even, but I could sense the underlying hostility. It's important we stay united. United. The very fabric of our team felt frayed, the cohesiveness dissolved by my intrusion. I agree, I said slowly, choosing my words with care. But I think incorporating my findings might actually solve the problems we've been facing. Together we can. Oh, come on. Sarah interrupted with a scoff, crossing her arms defiantly. Whose interests are you really looking out for? The data wasn't exactly supposed to be yours, was it? A moment of silence hung like a heavy weight between us. My throat tightened. Did she think I had staked a claim just for myself? I'm not looking to take anything from anyone, just trying to add value, I replied, my voice firmer than I felt. Just then, Chris stepped into the breakout room, the tension palpable. Is there a problem here? His tone left no room for ambiguity. I could feel my body tense, a rush of adrenaline coursing through me. Just discussing the project and our strategies, Mark spoke up smoothly, veering the focus away from me. It seems we have some differences in how we approach it. Differences, I'd call it disagreements, Sarah corrected, her eyes locking onto mine. I felt the challenge hanging in the air like an electric current. Would they label me the adversary? Chris's brow furrowed, his eyes darting between us. Listen, we need to focus on collaboration, especially after today. Let's set aside our personal conflicts and build from what we have. Easier said than done, I muttered under my breath, feeling a swell of anxiety. Could we really come back from this? Would they ever see me as one of their own? As the conversation shifted back to the logistics of our project, I found myself caught between the veiled aggression and crafty maneuvering of my colleagues. I couldn't help but wonder what will come next. How deep did the treachery run within this facade of teamwork? Before we unravel this dynamic web further, let me just pause to remind you quickly, YouTube has been shaking up subscriptions lately, so take a moment to check that you're still with us, and give a like if you're enjoying this journey. Now, back to the room filled with unwholesome secrets and unexpected alliances, where every word sparks potential shifts in our journey. As we returned to discussions about metrics and outreach strategies, I felt more like a pawn in a game I didn't know I was participating in. Laughter intertwined with strategic exchanges, a dance between camaraderie and hidden agendas. Did any of them consider the fallout of betrayal? I glanced at Sarah, who was now deep in conversation with Mark, and felt a sense of foreboding creep over me. What were they discussing behind my back? By the time the meeting wrapped up, tension lingered like the last notes of a haunting melody. My gut instinct told me that I was navigating a ticking time bomb each day, bringing new revelations and darker undertones to the surface. How long could I hold on to my newfound power before it blew up in my face? With thoughts spinning wildly in my head, I tucked my notes back into my folder. Tomorrow would present a new challenge, and the uncertainty sat heavy on my shoulders. I could feel the tightening noose of scrutiny from my colleagues, and I knew that the next steps would be pivotal, not just for the project, but for my very place within this company. When the clock struck 5, I made my way to the elevator. The dull hum of the machinery surrounding me as I descended to the quiet of the parking garage. Outside, the evening air was crisp, fresh against my flushed skin. But even as I inhaled deeply, the clouds of doubt and betrayal loomed ahead. What awaited me in the office tomorrow? Could I truly trust anyone? Little did I know, the following day would unravel secrets that would change everything. Would I emerge unscathed, or would I fall victim to the very shadows I had sought to unveil? I stood at my desk, the soft hum of the office surrounding me like a cocoon, yet feeling more like a solitary island. The aftermath of yesterday's meetings still weighed heavily on my mind. As I replayed the tense exchanges, uncertainty gnawed at my insides. Could this all end badly? I whispered to myself. Sarah's voice echoed in my thoughts, sharp and questioning. Can we really rely on data you found on your own? Did my colleagues truly see me as a threat? Just then, Chris strode past, his eyes locked onto mine, and I forced a smile even as my heart raced. We need to talk, he said, beckoning me to follow him to the conference room. The air in the room stank of stale coffee and anxiety as I entered. Look, Chris began, pacing back and forth. Your findings caused quite a stir. But now, it's critical to regain the team's trust. The pressure in my chest intensified. It wasn't just about the project anymore. It was about my place in this chaotic hierarchy. Are you suggesting I retract my findings? I replied, my voice revealing a flicker of defiance. This information could make us leaders in our market. Exactly, Chris responded, stopping to face me, his brow furrowing. But how you handle this can either set us up for success or tear us apart. You have power now, but it can turn into division if you aren't careful. My mind raced. Could I manipulate this power, or would it consume me? I'll do whatever it takes, I affirmed, determination sparking through the layers of doubt. Meet with the rest of the team before lunch, he instructed. You need to rally them, not isolate yourself. As I left the room, moments of tension flickered in my mind, weaving questions and worries. Would my attempt to unite us push me further into isolation? The clock ticked by agonizingly slow, seconds turning into potential minefields. I rehearsed what I would say, pondering every word carefully. We can enhance our outcomes if we all contribute, I would tell them. But would they listen? Or would I be met with more resistance, more distrust? Before I could dissect the mounting thoughts, I received a text from Tom. Good luck in there. Just remember, solidarity is key. His words wrapped around my nervous energy, grounding me for just a moment. As I approached the table where my colleagues sat, I prepared to challenge the shadows lurking among us. The room felt charged, the kind of electricity that crackles before a storm. Before I dive into what happens next, how alliances are tested and betrayals surface, there's a quick moment to remind you all. YouTube has been playing tricks with subscriptions lately. So please take a moment to ensure you're still subscribed, and hit that like button if you're invested in this unfolding drama. Now, let's uncover who will stand beside me as the tides shift. Thank you all for gathering, I started, trying to maintain a steady voice, my palms damp against my notes. We have a pivotal opportunity ahead of us. Mark leaned back, arms crossed, skepticism etched clearly across his face. What makes you think we're in this together? I tightened my grip on my notes, fighting the urge to falter. The data I found sheds light on new market strategies. If we collaborate, we can beat our competitors. Or you could just be trying to save your own job. Sarah shot back, her angry tone slicing through the tension. Maybe, but the data can save us all, I countered, refusing to back down. We need to set aside our differences and work towards common goals. Easier for you to say, being the one with the golden information, Sarah said, her skepticism glaring. My heart pounded, but I pressed on. This is about the future of our project, our teamwork. If we don't stand together, it won't matter who has the data. Silence hung heavy in the air as they exchanged glances. Could I convince them to unify? Or would my words ignite a feud? The stakes were higher than ever. Suddenly, Chris appeared in the doorway, observing us with an intense gaze, and I felt my heart sink. He could amplify the tension. As he stepped inside, he cleared his throat and turned to me. "Would you care to continue?" The eyes of my colleagues bore into me, waiting for the fallout. "Sure, I stammered, my voice faltering, but I looked around and saw apprehension reflected back. This data could not only change our project but solidify our team's reputation. I'm not just asking for collaboration, I'm calling for unity. And just like that, I stood at the precipice, knowing that one wrong move could shatter everything. Could I rally them? Could I transform distrust into collaboration? Before we dive deeper into the mounting tensions and decisions that await, here's a quick reminder for everyone. Make sure you're still subscribed and show your support by liking this video. Every bit helps us keep digging into these captivating stories. Now, back to the high-stakes moment where futures hang in balance. As murmurs flickered through the group, I felt both apprehensive and energized. This was my chance to either solidify my worth or fall flat on my face. I took a deep breath, pushing back the rising panic. Let's turn our rivalries into strengths. Who's with me? The silence was deafening. Each face reflected uncertainty, skepticism lingering around the edges. And yet, beneath the surface, I sensed a shift. Tom stepped forward, arms uncrossed. "I'm in," he said, encouraging others to nod thoughtfully. "Me too," Mark added. But I could tell he was still cautious. "Let's keep the focus on how we move forward," Chris interjected, a hint of approval in his voice. The scales began to tilt in my direction. As I continued to build momentum, I sensed Sarah's glare, molten envy, wrapping around her like a shroud. Would I win her over, or would she sabotage my progress? The ground felt shaky beneath my feet. I couldn't decide if the rising tide would claim me, or if I would ride it to victory. With each moment, the stakes intensified. Would I be able to steer us through this storm of rivalry, or would I be swallowed whole? What will happen next, as alliances shift and the invisible thread of trust is tested? You won't want to miss what comes next in this nail-biting conclusion.